So when I heard about the WNBA, I first was surprised that there was this league of professional women basketball players. I had never heard of them again. Not totally surprising because I didn't read sports pages, not much pay attention. But I was surprised that Chicago didn't have a team. That Chicago is this unbelievable sports town. Chicago, basically, if you look at our history, we've always had, the Blackhawks, the Bears, the Cubs, Sox. Those were four of the oldest teams in all those leagues. Always been the beginning. The Bulls came a little bit later, but not that late. They're still one of the earlier teams. So, enormous history of being at the front end of these leagues. And here we have this WNBA league. When I first heard about it, I think it had been around 7, 8 years, something like that. And Chicago didn't have a team. And so that shocked me when I heard about it. And I was embarrassed by that. I thought that's just wrong. Even though I didn't know about it, women's sports to me was pre-Title IX. So I knew very few women who were really strong, powerful athletes growing up. This time my daughter was now starting to be playing sports. So I, as a father, I was experiencing it, but growing up, very few women. So, it seemed wrong. So Adam Silver introduced me a couple of women who turned out to be players of the league, and that was the first I heard about it. And these women were incredible. They just really kind of blew me away. And in some way, it kind of reminded me of my experience with City Year, which City Year is all about bringing young people together, diverse young people, having them do service together. And this was, I thought of sports as kind of, it's a different, again, I hate the platform, but instead of service, it was sports, but it was sort of a similar way of, having diverse people and a way to impact community and society and whatnot. And so, so when I met these women and I heard about
who are these women, by the way, what were their names?
Oh, they were top players. I think Lisa Leslie was one of them, Diana Taurasi. So Adam, as I started asking him questions about, what's this league? How come I never heard of it? Why is Chicago the team? And, he answered his questions. And then he said at one point, we don't have a team in Chicago. We really like to be in Chicago. Is that something you might have some interest in? And so I said, okay. I never in a million years thought about being involved in sports, but, I'm one of those, okay,
Good idea.
somebody's going to do it. This is going to happen. And, I felt, okay, if someone's going to make it happen, might as well be me. I don't know who else is going to do it. Didn't seem like anybody else was that interested. The league at that point in time had been conceived of as an outgrowth of the NBA. So every team at that point was an NBA team. And the NBA owners had the option to also getting a WNBA team. And
what year was that happening? Like when?
This was 1996 or so, I think.
Gracious. Okay. Wow.
98, maybe it was 98. It was right after the 96 Olympics because that team had a big splash. There's a lot of momentum, and that's kind of when they launched the league. And so David Stern, who was the commissioner, and Adam, who was there, they conceived of the league and said, went to NBA owners and said, we're doing it. If you want a team, have a team. The Bulls ownership were not interested really in having a team. So that's why Chicago wasn't part of it. And there was this big kind of hole. So I decided to do it, not really knowing any idea what that meant, what I was getting myself into, and figuring out how one goes about doing something like that. So
you were married at the time, right?
What's that?
You were married at the time.
I was married at the time.
I mean, was your wife like, this sounds like a great idea, or she's like, what in the world are you doing?
Yeah, I think people didn't. My dad wasn't a big fan of it. He thought it was crazy. But no one knew that.
Exactly. One of my questions was, did people think you were nuts?
Yeah, they did. But